A decade ago, back in 2014, Sony deliberately leaked through Deadline Hollywood that they were developing something truly revolutionary and groundbreaking that the world had never before seen. A female-centric Spider-Man spin-off movie featuring an all-female superhero team.
Yay!
Now, a decade later, this revolutionary movie is actually here in the guise of Marvel's Madam Web. But by the looks of it, the only groundbreaking thing about it is how much both the audience and industry alike are already over its all-female selling point. If there ever was a movie that missed its mark and came out way too late, it's Sony and Marvel's Madam Web. And that's something, considering how long the development of the movie that eventually would become Madam Web has been going on. On August 4th of 2014, for context, that's 5 months after the release of Captain America the Winter Soldier, 4 months after the release of Sony's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 3 months after the release of Fox's X-Men Days of Future Past, and 1 week prior to the release of Marvel Studios' Guardians of the Galaxy. So on this day, August 4th of 2014, Deadline Hollywood released the exclusive, because Sony fed it to them. Sony launches female superhero movie mining Spider-Man universe. Here it should be noted that this was prior to the release of Wonder Woman, and Ike Perlmutter was still firmly in charge of Marvel, so the MCU wasn't even a gleam in Kevin Feige's eyes. At this time, it was Sony's then head honcho Amy Pascal who was the early pioneer in making male properties female-centric. Indeed, this was mere weeks after it had been leaked that she was facilitating Paul Feig rebooting the Ghostbusters with an all-female team. But with all that context established, let's get back to this article then, which after referencing the then-in-development Amazing Spider-Man 2 follow-up Sinister Six reads, "After the villains emerge, get ready for the power of the women from the Spider-Man universe." Which characters they will develop is up for speculation, but we know that Lisa Joy has been hired to script and that again Arad and Tolmach are producing. There are several strong possibilities: Silver Sable, Black Cat, Stunner, Firestar and Spider-Woman, to name a few. The reason Deadline Hollywood didn't know which woman would feature in this all-female team is because Sony themselves didn't know either. The mandate from Amy Pascal was that she wanted an all-female superhero team for this movie, which we know from the Sony hack had the working title Glass Ceiling. But which characters to focus on and what the story was going to be was a distant second priority. The only thing that really mattered was that it was female-centric and an all-female team. That was the sole selling point and the only reason why the movie was being pushed in the first place, even though there was no story and not even any characters selected. You'd think an industry trade like Deadline Hollywood might have pointed out this potential flaw in the planning, but nope, they instead chimed in. It was only a matter of time that someone would announce a female superhero movie, and it happens to be Sony who is the first out of the gate. They then say this is a wise move for Sony because it's capitalizing not only on the audience's changing appetite. That, by the way, is 2014 speak for appealing to modern audiences, which we now know to always have been imaginary. The only reason anyone ever thought they were real were bots on Twitter. Back then, however, they genuinely thought that this modern audience craving what we today call DEI in entertainment was real, and so Amy Pascal forced through Paul Feig's female-centric Ghostbusters, which eventually bombed upon release. But before she could force through Glass Ceiling, she was ousted over the Sony hack, and while she would remain a producer on Sony's various Spider-Man projects, Glass Ceiling descended into development hell. But while it was roasting there, the rest of Hollywood, none more so than Disney, went all in on the all-female, all-the-time bandwagon. Ironically, one of the only studios that sat this out was Sony, after the audience collectively punched them in the face over Paul Feig's female-centric Ghostbusters. Despite Amy Pascal's intention that Sony be the first to make an all-female comic book movie, her replacement Tom Rothman greenlit literally everything else like Venom and Morbius and Venom 2, and even Ghostbusters sequels that ignored the female Ghostbusters over the various iterations of glass ceiling that were being developed over the years. Eventually, though, the spiritual reincarnation of Glass Ceiling and its all-female Spider-Man team would resurrect in the guise of Madam Webb. By that point, Amy Pascal was no longer involved, but that's okay. Keeping her mantle alive was director S.J. Clarkson, who a few years earlier had filmed a $30 million Game of Thrones spin-off pilot, which HBO reportedly scrapped because it was, and no, I'm not joking here, too woke for the audience. And she assured Entertainment Weekly that Madam Webb would be proper female-centric, just like the episodes of Jessica Jones she had directed for Netflix. Fast forward to today. Even though she's no longer attached to it, Amy Pascal's dream of an all-female superhero movie where it being female-centric is the sole selling point is about to be unleashed upon the audience. Yay! The problem, though, is that over the course of all the years Glass Ceiling spent in development hell, an all-female team went from being a novelty perhaps worth exploring to a cliché, worthy of nothing but scorn, derision, and ultimately rejection. This might have been pioneering if it really did come out a decade ago, but in this day and age, practically every superhero movie and every superhero TV series is female-centric. Even Grace Randolph admits that perhaps things may have gone a little bit too far, because by now the audience clearly have had their fill. The audience demonstrated this last year when they rejected the Marvels worldwide. Exclude China from the equation, and that movie didn't even pass 200 million at the worldwide box office. Case in point, the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, where Deadpool is portrayed as Marvel's Jesus come to save the MCU. Just contemplate why the MCU is in need of saving in the first place. So, is there no hope for Madam Webb? Well, based on the early industry reviews, and these would be the same kind of relatively curated and controlled reviews that initially made the likes of both the Marvels and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania seem like good movies, before the full set of reviews more firmly established their rottenness, then no, there is no hope for Madam Webb. The early reviews are universally brutal, making it clear that just about the only thing the movie has going for it is that it is female-centric with an all-female team. Even the aforementioned Deadline Hollywood hated it. It would appear that even after a decade in development, they never got around to adding any worthwhile characters or a story worth seeing. So now the movie is destined to flop, sending the whole comic book movie genre spiraling even further down the drain in the process. Even though it's not technically MCU, Madam Webb won't make Marvel Jesus Deadpool's job of reigniting interest any easier. Let me know how interested you are in seeing Madam Webb in the comments.